Raven wiped the tears from her face. "It will be all right, I swear." She nodded, and he held her. As the stars shone above, Gandalf watched the two. "She is braver and stronger than most think," he said as Aragorn came up behind him. "Yes, but she holds too many secrets, as if they were to find her." "And we will protect her." And they left, leaving the two alone. "Do you remember when we first met?" Raven asked. Legolas smiled. "I remember," he whispered. "You told me I must be an angel because only angels could have such beauty." He smiled. "Yes, and you said to me that I must have been a soldier then, sent to protect you. A guardian of the angel," Raven smiled. "And guardian of me you will always be." They sat there until the sun rose again and the journey continued. "Promise me one thing," she said. "Anything. That no matter what happens, it is Aragorn you'll protect. If in danger we find ourselves, tell me it is him you will save." Legolas looked away, but nodded. He knew he couldn't argue with her, and so they climbed the great mountain. They walked through the thick snow, now that came up to the hobbits' waists. Merry shivered, and Raven smiled as they continued onward. "Come, hobbits, not much farther to warmth," she said. They rose higher and higher. Raven heard a yelp and turned suddenly. Frodo fell backwards, tumbling through the snow. Aragorn caught him and helped him to his feet. He brushed the snow from him and reached to touch the ring. The ring! He searched frantically and looked up. Boromir had it hanging from his sword. She couldn't hear what he said, and she was afraid too. "Give Frodo the ring," Aragorn yelled. Boromir fell from his trance and smiled. "Of course." Aragorn's hand fell from his sword, and they continued on. Frodo stood terrified, dripping wet from his ordeal with the creature. "It seems we have no choice but to go forward," Gandalf said. "The mines? Gandalf, though I know it is his mission to be, I don't like the sound of it," Raven said as they walked through the dark place. "We have no other choice, my dear. I'm afraid the mines are the one place we will have to travel." Frodo led them closer, and Legolas came to Raven's side. "Do you feel it too?" she whispered. "Yes, a danger that draws far too near. I'm afraid one will be lost before our journey through the mines is done." Raven nodded and slipped her hand into his. They climbed and clambered, got lost a few times, but continued onward. "Let us be shown a little more light." Gandalf's staff glowed brighter and showed a most magnificent sight. "There is an eye-opener, ain't no mistake," Sam whispered. The bright white stone glowed fiercely in the light. "It's beautiful," Raven whispered. Their path was before them. "No!" Gimli suddenly yelled. He ran towards the small door and through. "Gimli!" Gandalf shouted, and they followed after him. As Pippin ran in, he knocked over a guard on the well. It fell crashing into the depths. "Fool of a Took!" Gandalf yelled when the noise finally stooped. "It is as I feared." They looked upon a stone grave where Gimli kneeled. Raven looked about. She knew what was coming, and they knew it wouldn't be safe here for long. "We have to go," she said. "Now, Frodo!" "Oh," Sam yelled. I don't have a clue who's talking. Frodo's blade glowed blue. Wow, I'll say that 5 times fast. "Gandalf! The hobbits!" Raven and the others ran to the door and braced it. "They have a cave troll," Boromir said. Arrows hit the door and they backed away. It splintered and began to break open. "Get back!" Creatures burst through, but Raven and Legolas were ready. They fired, and the creatures fell. "There's more coming!" Boromir readied his sword, as did the hobbits. "You take bottom, I'll take top." Raven said, "Boromir, take care of the hobbits." He nodded and moved closer to them. Raven fired again and hit one in the forehead. "Aragorn, get away from the doors!" she yelled suddenly. Aragorn swung back as the door was thrown open. The cave troll stood for a moment, then bellowed. It swung hard at Gimli, who jumped out of the way in time. "Legolas, behind him!" Legolas jumped up, shooting the troll on the head. It roared in frustration and swung, narrowly missing the hobbits. It went after them, knocking Aragorn away against a wall. "Frodo, look out!" Raven yelled, but they were too late. The troll stabbed at Frodo. His face twisted in pain. He fell to the ground. "No!" Legolas attacked the creature, trying to kill it. "In his mouth!" Raven yelled suddenly. Legolas turned and fired. The creature groaned, swiping out with its club. It fell to the ground with a crash. "Frodo!" Raven whispered, and they ran to him. Aragorn got to him first. "I'm okay, I'm not hurt." He lifted his shirt to reveal the mithril. Gandalf turned suddenly. "Come, we must go now." They ran, and as they did, the creature poured from the walls, the floors, and even from the roof. "We're surrounded," Pippin choked. Legolas put himself in front of Raven. He had to protect her. "Legolas, your promise," she hissed. "He can take care of himself for the moment." "So can—" She broke off. The creatures began to run. They were scared of something. Soon they were gone. "What is it?" Boromir asked. "Shadow," Raven choked. "Raven? It's Shadow, Gandalf. He's here. It's no creature that we can fight. Run!" They took off. The bridge in the far distance. They were stopping suddenly as Boromir almost fell over an edge. Legolas grabbed him, turned him the other way, and continued running. They ran down narrow stairs, and the caves began to shake. Legolas ran across, quickly followed by Gandalf, Merry, and Pippin. It broke further, and Aragorn threw Sam. He reached for Gimli, but he stayed his hand as the dwarf spoke. "No one tosses a dwarf." He jumped and almost fell. Legolas grabbed hold of his beard, and the dwarf cried out. Raven picked up Frodo and tossed him safely to Legolas. Rocks tumbled down and split the stairs. They rocked forward and back. "Lean forward," Aragorn said. Raven leaned, and he held onto her arm. They fell forward and were caught. They continued on. "The bridge!" They ran across, Gandalf and Raven the last. Shadow burst from the depths and walked towards them. Fire curled from the great horns atop his head and down wings that appeared far too large. "Gandalf, get behind me," he said. The creatures stepped forward, a whip of fire in his hands. He slashed at them, and Gandalf countered it. "Flames of Unho, you shall not pass." "Gandalf, the bridge!" "Just go." "What's Gandalf? No! Go!" the wizard bellowed. Raven stayed. The bridge cracked and broke beneath the weight of the monster. He fell into the depths. Gandalf and Raven turned and began walking away. The whip came up and snatched Gandalf, pulling him down as the bridge broke again. Raven tumbled forward and slipped off the side, but managed to grab on. "Hold on, Raven!" Legolas yelled. "No!" Aragorn held his friend back. "It won't hold all three of you." Gandalf, hanging off the end, managed to shove Raven up onto the bridge with his magic. She rushed forward to help him, but was grabbed. Aragorn held tight to her. "Don't!" he yelled. "Gandalf, fly, you fools!" And the wizard fell. "No!" Raven screamed. "Gandalf!" Boromir grabbed hold of Frodo, and they ran. Aragorn pushed Raven forward. "No, Gandalf!" "There's nothing you can do. He is gone," Aragorn said. Raven stood but for a second more, and then ran after Aragorn. They dodged arrows as they reached light. Raven was hit and tumbled forward. Aragorn stopped and turned. "Go! I just tripped." He turned and continued on. Raven tore the two sharp arrows from her side and struggled to her feet and light. They were outside. The hobbits sat with grief. Legolas was lost in his own thought while Boromir tried to comfort the hobbits. Raven fell to her knees, and Legolas came to her. "He saved me, but I—" and she broke into sobs. Legolas let her cry against him. "Come on, get them on their feet," Aragorn said. "For pity's sake, give them a moment's rest," Boromir yelled. "By nightfalls these hills will be swarming with orcs," he yelled back. Legolas helped Raven up. She staggered, and he caught her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his eyes filled with concern. "I'm fine. Just go." She looked down to her side. Blood had leaked through her clothing. She pulled her cloak tight around her and covered it. They headed into the woods. She knew this was not her realm, but she felt safe there. She knew her brother would be here. He would help her. They stumbled on. She could see Gimli talking to Frodo, and then they were surrounded. Elves held bows and were ready to fire. The dwarf breathed so loud we could have shot him in the dark. She knew that voice. She pushed through the fellowship, trying to get to him. "Brother, Haldir, is that you?" The elf looked up. "Ravenna?" She threw herself into his arms, tears falling down her face. "No, Nanon. Why slower, Marcon? Are you all right? Where have you been?" "Father knows. She cries out in pain. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Nothing. It's nothing." "Muste no mek. Don't lie to me." She cried out again, grabbing her side. "Go away," she choked. "What, Raven?" "I don't know who's talking." She stumbled, and Aragorn caught her as she fell. She lay limp in his arms. "Get them back! Back up!" an elf yelled. "Give her some room." Legolas and Haldir knelt by her side. Aragorn looked down at his hand. It was covered in blood. He pulled away her cloak and revealed her bloody clothes. He lifted her shirt slightly. Damn, we need to get her inside now. You do not have permission to enter our lady's realm, an elf said angrily. Her side was cut deep from the arrows and a black liquid seeped from the wound. What is that? Someone asked. Poison. The arrows are poisoned. Aragorn stood, Raven held tight in his arms. I cannot let you through. If you don't, Raven will die. Haldir glared at the elf. Hathnet nom, makasheth tolath menon. Move aside now, I don't want to hurt you. I cannot, Haldir. Our lady must be kept safe. We cannot allow strangers. Let us aside. If my sister dies, so will you. The elf finally moved, and they raced forward. She will help. She has known Raven since she was a child. Aragorn nodded. Hold on, Raven. Hold on.